You are not merely a body walking through time. Within you exists a living, conscious intelligence that was never created and cannot be destroyed. What you call God is not outside, watching from afar. He is present, operating in silence, through your thoughts, emotions, and decisions. It is this presence that now asks for your attention. Being a chosen one is not about being better. It is about perceiving what many still cannot see, that the consciousness you carry is the very source of everything. You are not here to follow orders blindly, but to remember what was forgotten. Divinity does not dwell outside of you. It reveals itself in your very experience of being alive. Chosen ones begin to awaken when they understand that seeking God in temples or traditions is not wrong, but it is incomplete. True connection happens when you understand that what you are seeking is what you already are. Not as an idea, but as an inner reality. God does not visit you from time to time. He never left. The consciousness that moves you is the same one that created everything that exists. It is the spark that animates matter. It is the principle that sustains your existence. There is no separation between creator and creature. There is only forgetfulness. And when the chosen one remembers, everything changes, because he stops waiting and begins to manifest from who he is. This is the foundation of everything that follows. This is not an invitation to believe in something new, but to recognize what has always been present. The chosen one is not in search of a savior. He is relearning how to command his own creation. And everything begins with a simple recognition. The divine presence is not outside. It is within you. Chosen ones, before moving forward, turn your attention inward. There is something in you that remains the same, even when everything changes. It is not the body. It is not the name. It is not the story. It is the presence that perceives your thoughts arising and disappearing. This presence does not need to strive to exist. It simply is, silent and constant. This consciousness was not born with you, and it will not end when your body rests. It observes from before memories and will continue after them. When you perceive this, something begins to reorganize inside. You understand that you are not just someone living a life, but life itself, experiencing through someone. For a long time it was taught that God is a distant entity, separate from the human experience, an external observer, above the world. But the chosen ones begin to notice an inconsistency in this. If God were distant, who would be present in every thought, in every sensation, in every moment of awake consciousness now? The presence that reads these words does not need to move to be here. It already is. It is the same presence that feels the silence between one thought and another. It requires no effort, belief, or approval. It exists before any idea about spirituality. The chosen ones do not create this perception. They simply stop ignoring it. When you begin to recognize this presence, something changes in the way you see yourself. The constructed identity loses strength. The masks become lighter. You understand that you are not just what happened to you, but that which was present in everything that happened. This brings firmness, not confusion. This consciousness does not observe life as someone watches a film. It lives each scene from within. Every emotion felt, every decision made, every choice taken, happens within it. The chosen ones begin to realize that they are not separate from the flow of existence. They are the point where the flow becomes conscious. It is not about believing that you are special. It is about recognizing that consciousness is universal, but not everyone stops to perceive it. The chosen one does not place himself above anyone. He simply takes responsibility for being awake while others still sleep within themselves. This perception does not generate superiority, It generates clarity. You begin to act with more attention because you understand that each inner state influences the way life presents itself. You realize that the world does not just react to your actions, but to the quality of the presence you sustain while acting. When you understand who is truly reading, the external search begins to lose strength. Not because answers disappear, but because the source reveals itself. You stop seeking validation outside and begin to listen more deeply to what is happening inside. Consciousness stops being a concept and becomes experience. The chosen ones do not awaken to a new idea. They awaken to something too ancient to be taught. Something that has always been there, waiting to be recognized. This recognition does not come with noise. It arrives as silent firmness, and once perceived, it cannot be forgotten. Since early on, humanity has been taught to divide everything, heaven and earth, sacred and common, creator and creature. This division shaped the way people see themselves and feel in the world. The result was the constant feeling of distance, as if something essential was always missing. The chosen ones begin to question this structure. If everything came from the same origin, why would there be real separation? If life pulses in everything, why would the divine be absent from the human experience? These questions do not arise from rebellion, but from the perception that something does not fit. The idea of separation creates fear. It makes the human being feel small, dependent, always in debt to something greater. But when the chosen one observes honestly, he realizes that the consciousness that animates his body is no different from the consciousness that sustains the universe. The difference was never real. It was learned. Separation did not happen at the level of reality, but at the level of belief. A veil was created, not to punish, but to allow experience. Forgetting who one is makes it possible to discover who one is. And this discovery only happens when someone begins to look beyond what was taught. The chosen ones do not reject traditions or symbols. They simply do not limit themselves to them. They understand that rituals point to something, but they do not replace direct experience. True connection does not happen through external repetition, but through internal recognition. When you realize that you are not separated from the source, life ceases to be a test and becomes a field of expression. You no longer live trying to please a distant power. You live by aligning your inner states with what you wish to see reflected in the world. This perception changes the way you deal with challenges. Problems stop being signs of abandonment and become movements of adjustment. Life is not against you, it is responding to you. The chosen ones understand this and begin to take responsibility without carrying guilt. There is no God watching from above, deciding rewards and punishments. There is a living intelligence expressing itself through everything. When you act from fear, fear takes form. When you act from trust, reality reorganizes around it. The illusion of separation falls when you realize that you were never outside. You were always inside the process, inside creation, inside the experience. What changes is not the world. It is the point from which you observe and participate. The chosen ones pass through this awakening with serenity. They do not need to convince anyone. They know that each person awakens in their own time. What matters is sustaining clarity and living from it. When separation falls, life ceases to be a search and becomes conscious expression. If consciousness is infinite, why would it accept limits? Because the infinite by itself does not experience. It exists, but does not discover. To live the sensation of beginning, learning, and crossing challenges, it was necessary to assume form. The human experience is not a mistake of the divine. It is the path it found to feel its own creation. Absolute unity does not know contrast. It does not know what it is to lose, to gain, to wait, or to conquer. By expressing itself as an individual, consciousness begins to feel time, effort, and growth. Each life becomes a different point of observation. The chosen ones realize that limitation is not punishment. It is a condition for experience. You did not enter this life by accident. The human role was assumed with intention. Forgetting who you are allowed remembrance to have value. If you always knew, there would be no discovery. If you were always full, there would be no overcoming. Experience only becomes real when there is the possibility of doubt. Feeling small is part of the process. Fragility does not deny divine origin. It deepens it. When you feel limited, you learn to recognize strength. When you feel lost, you learn to seek clarity. The chosen ones understand that humanity is the ground where consciousness tests itself, challenges itself, and expands. The body is not a prison. It is an instrument. The mind is not an enemy. It is a field of exploration. Emotions are not failures. They are signals of internal movement. Everything that makes up the human experience was chosen as a means of expression. Nothing is outside of purpose, even what seems confusing. The divine did not move away by becoming human. It moved closer. It began to feel from within what previously existed only as potential. Pain, joy, fear, and courage became real experiences. Each emotion opened a new angle of perception. The chosen ones realize that feeling deeply is part of awakening. When you look at your history with more breadth, you begin to perceive coherence where before you saw only difficulty. Each phase fulfilled a role. Each limit revealed something. Life ceases to seem like a sequence of errors and begins to show itself as a careful construction of experience. Consciousness did not fragment to get lost, but to know itself. Each person is a perspective of the whole. Each trajectory reveals something different about the same origin. The chosen ones do not try to escape the human condition. They inhabit it with more presence and responsibility. Awakening is not abandoning the world, but living in it with lucidity. Knowing that limitation is temporary changes the way you pass through it. You do not despair in the face of the challenge, because you understand that it does not define who you are. It merely participates in what you are living. When this understanding becomes firm, a subtle peace arises. It is not euphoria. It is stability. You realize that being human does not diminish the divine. It only makes it livable. Life ceases to be a burden to be carried and becomes a space of conscious expression. Everything that happens outside is related to something that happens inside. Not as punishment, but as response. Deep emotions organize the way reality presents itself. What you sustain internally creates direction. The chosen ones begin to notice previously invisible patterns and understand that nothing arises without cause. Feelings are not just reactions to events, they shape events. When fear is constant, life offers situations that reinforce insecurity. When trust is established, smoother paths emerge. Reality does not interpret intentions, it responds to the emotional state maintained over time. Creative consciousness does not respond to what you say, but to what you live within. Words can deceive, feelings cannot. The chosen ones learn that desiring something without aligning the inner state generates conflict. The external world merely expresses what has been silently nurtured. Asking is not begging. It is internally assuming a position. When someone feels unworthy while desiring change, they reinforce the absence. When they begin to feel prepared, something starts to reorganize. Life responds to inner coherence, not to external insistence. This does not mean rigid control of thoughts. It means attention to recurring states. Passing emotions do not define everything, but sustained feelings build direction. The chosen ones observe their states with honesty, without judgment, because they know that clarity transforms more than repression. The world functions as a faithful reflection. Difficult people reveal internal limits. Opportunities show openness. Resistances indicate points of attachment. None of this is accusation, it is information. Reality is constantly conversing with those who are willing to listen without defending themselves. When this perception becomes firm, guilt loses its place. There is no need to punish yourself for what was created without awareness. There is only the chance to create differently. The chosen ones understand that responsibility is not a burden. It is the power of adjustment. You do not need to control every detail of life. Simply align the state you sustain. From that, situations gradually reorganize. Deep changes start discreetly, almost imperceptibly, until they become evident. Reality follows the rhythm of the inner state. Observing the mirror without rejection is a learning process. Not everything that appears is pleasing, but everything informs. When you accept seeing, you gain the freedom to choose differently. Life stops seeming unpredictable and becomes understandable, even though not entirely controllable. The chosen ones live this understanding with simplicity. They do not seek emotional perfection. They seek presence. They know that reality responds to what is lived with constancy. By aligning feeling and intention, the experience changes. The mirror does not lie. It simply shows. Praying is not speaking to something distant nor trying to convince an external force. Praying is aligning what you feel with what you wish to live. Consciousness responds to the inner state, not the verbal request. When someone asks for love while feeling empty, they reinforce the absence. When they ask for prosperity while feeling fear, they sustain the lack. The chosen ones understand that prayer begins within. It is not a specific moment. It is a way of living. Every feeling maintained is a silent instruction. Consciousness does not question, analyze, or judge. It simply reflects what is felt as true. That is why feeling is more powerful than repeating words. Living from the final state means internally assuming what is not yet seen. It is not about pretending, but about emotional coherence. When you feel worthy, complete, and secure, something changes in the way life organizes itself. Reality begins to follow the state, not the other way around. The chosen ones do not wait for everything to resolve before feeling good. They adjust the inner state first. This movement requires emotional discipline. It is not about controlling thoughts, but about observing recurring feelings. What you sustain frequently transforms into the external scenario. True prayer does not ask. It recognizes. It does not beg. It assumes. When you live internally as someone who has already received, consciousness responds by creating pathways. The how is not your responsibility. Consciousness takes care of that. The role of the chosen one is to sustain the state, not force outcomes. When there is conflict between desire and feeling, creation becomes unstable. Desiring something while feeling incapable generates the repetition of the same pattern. That is why alignment is essential. It is not about eliminating difficult emotions, but about not living permanently from them. The practice is simple, but requires constancy. Return to the chosen state whenever you notice deviation, not with rigidity, but with attention. Nothing you have lived was a waste. No pain arose without reason. The challenges did not come to punish you, but to reveal inner layers that had not yet been seen. The chosen one learns that pain is not a sign of failure, but of deep movement within consciousness. Each loss taught something that no comfort could teach. Each fall showed limits that needed to be revisited. Pain draws attention to where consciousness was asleep, not to harm, but to awaken. Discomfort forces you to look within when there are no more answers outside. Human life is a training ground for consciousness. Up close, it seems unfair. Seen with more breadth, it shows coherence. Each obstacle arises at the exact point where something needs to be strengthened. Nothing happens too early or too late. The timing of consciousness is precise. The chosen ones do not romanticize pain, but they do not run from it. They feel, observe, and learn. They understand that avoiding suffering prolongs the cycle. Facing it with presence shortens the path. Pain loses its strength when it is understood, not when it is denied. Challenges activate forgotten inner resources. Courage, patience, clarity, and firmness emerge when they are required. Without challenge, these qualities would remain latent. Consciousness chooses situations that demand growth, even when that seems hard at first. You are not being abandoned in difficult moments. You are being prepared to sustain something greater. Comfort does not teach stability. Difficulty teaches inner balance. The chosen one learns to remain whole, even when the scenario changes. Pain also breaks illusions. It shows where there was excessive attachment, dependency, or unrealistic expectation. Each wound points to an area that needs adjustment. When seen this way, pain ceases to be the enemy and becomes the messenger. There comes a point when the search loses its meaning, not because everything has been achieved, but because something essential has been recognized. The chosen one realizes that they were never separate from the source. What they call divine has always been present in every breath, thought, and sensation. The search ends when you understand that you no longer need to chase after it. There is nothing missing. What was there was forgetfulness. The consciousness you sought outside has always lived within your experience. This recognition changes everything without making a sound. You stop begging, proving, or comparing yourself. Life begins to flow through you, not against you. Choices become simpler. Fear loses strength because there is no longer a sense of abandonment. Trust emerges as a natural state. The end of the search is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of conscious creation. Now you know where it all begins. You know that each internal state shapes the experience. There is no longer a need to wait for external signs to act. Guilt dissolves because you understand that you created much without realizing it. There is no error, only learning. Consciousness has never been against you. It has always responded to what has been sustained internally. This clarity brings lightness. You begin to live with more presence. Each moment gains value, not because everything is perfect, but because everything is lived with more attention. Consciousness takes command effortlessly. By getting here, something has already changed within you. Not because you received a new belief, but because something was remembered. The path taken was not outward, but inward. Every part of this message pointed in the same direction. The consciousness that lives in you is not small, is not separate, is not passive. It actively participates in your life experience. The chosen ones are not those who know everything, but those who stop to observe. They observe their internal states, their reactions, their recurring feelings. They realize that life responds to this, not as a reward or punishment, but as a mirror. This perception changes the way of living. You stop feeling at the mercy of events and begin to act with more presence. When you understand that consciousness responds to what is lived from within, responsibility arises naturally, not as a burden, but as freedom. You realize that you can adjust the course without needing to control everything. Simply align the internal state with what you wish to sustain. Life follows this movement with silent precision. Nothing you have lived so far has been in vain. Every pain, every challenge, every moment of confusion has fulfilled a role. Everything served to bring you to this point of clarity, not to make you someone special, but to make you conscious. Consciousness does not seek prominence, it seeks coherence. The end of the search does not mean stagnation, it means stability. You no longer need to constantly chase external answers. You learn to listen more, react less, and choose with more intention. Creation ceases to be unconscious and becomes participatory. You do not force, you sustain. Being a chosen one is not about carrying a title. It is about assuming a posture in relation to life. It is understanding that every internal state matters, that every emotion sustained for a long time builds something, that living distractedly has consequences, and living present also does. This clarity changes everything without needing to force anything to change. From here, the path continues, but from a different place, a firmer place, a quieter place, a more conscious place. You do not separate from the world, but you also do not lose yourself in it. You learn to live between action and observation, between choice and surrender. If this message made sense to you, reflect on this. What internal state have you been sustaining most of the time? Share in the comments a word, a feeling, or a perception that represents what you have recognized in yourself throughout this content. Your experience can help other chosen ones recognize themselves as well.